I was up in Toronto last month for his first memorial. I missed my first class this year. So looking at it like that, I know it's a little bit of dark humor, but helps a little bit because I think he would have laughed at that. I didn't know what to say today either, so I figured we have a lot of students here of dads who want to say things, but for those who didn't like Dad so much, I have printed out his Rate My Professors. And there are quite a few gems here, so I just wanted to read a couple of them. I'll start with the bad ones, because those are the ones he liked the most. We used to read them together quite often. So, I'll just go through these. Rating, poor. A very smart man, but a little high-strung. He put an emphasis on critically thinking opposed to English rules, which is a little refreshing. I don't think I would take him again, however. Rating, awful. This is the worst teacher I have had at BHC. I would never take a class he taught again. I am a straight-A student and busted my butt to get a C. Very strange, too. And he tells jokes no one thinks they're funny but him. Rating, 4. This guy might have brains, but he lacks patience. Patience is a virtue possessed by only the best teachers, as if this student knows this sort of thing. If you love this class, then you're an ass kisser. And if any of you guys who wrote these are out there, I'm sorry. Rating, awful. Makes you feel stupid, hard to understand. Rating, awful. If you don't agree with his opinions, do not take this class. He makes it a point to argue and push his own agenda. Never actually teaches anything to do with the class. This is one of Dad's personal favorites. Rating, poor. A leftover hippie. He's more interested in telling us what's wrong with the government than actually teaching anything. He'd rather teach philosophy than composition, meaning more students leaving his class without the skills they should have. Mr. Carter is very unique. This is an average rating, by the way. He's very personable, easygoing and interesting to listen to, but his class seems more like philosophy than it does English. Personally, I wanted a more straightforward class. If you don't mind reading a lot, take this class, otherwise go elsewhere. Rating, good. So we're moving up, we're getting a little better. Erskine scared the crap out of me. I hated reading Zen. I hated everything we read in that class, actually. However, he was a pretty good teacher, and he helped me improve my writing a lot. And I don't see any grammatical errors in here, so looks like it worked. Reading, good. Wow, trying to stay awake was a bit of a struggle through some of those readings, but I did like the class because some of the things you read, like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, really makes you think about your life. It's a pretty boring book. And you really have to read into it, but there's hidden secrets in it. I think Carter may have even made some of them up. But overall, a good class so far. Rating, good. Carter's class was very entertaining. Seeing as he ripped on the ass kissers, he had a great taste in music. He was very lenient with attendance and appreciated good writing when he saw it. I would definitely recommend Erskine's class. Okay, rating, good. He's a pretty tough teacher, but it's worth it if you're not lazy. For the record, English comm classes are a joke. Just FYI. But at least in his, you actually learn something, regardless of the subject matter. So prepare to write and read a lot in the class. This teacher has you work for your grade. Rating, awesome. He rocks. When you read, you learn. When you write, you learn. When you talk, you learn. It's about critical thinking. And I wonder if this might have been an Alanis Morissette fan. Rating, awesome. Wow, he was the most amazing teacher ever. I loved his class, and this is all in caps, so you go, Mr. C! He liked that one. Couple more. Rating, awesome. Erskine Carter is brilliant. If you don't agree, then you're a jackass. Or you just don't like Bob Dylan, which makes you a jackass anyway. Thanks, Erskine, for all of our good conversations. I especially thank you for being so understanding when I was tangled up in blue. And last but not least, awesome rating again. I've never had such a great teacher as this guy. He made me love English class. It was very challenging to begin with, but over the course of the semester and working with him, he became my favorite teacher here at BHC. And there's some more on there, but just wanted to keep it short. Thanks for coming, everybody, and I'm glad that he had so many great friends and students, and that's all I have to say, really. Thank you.
I met Erskine at the first 9/11 memorial at Vanderveer Park in Davenport. And I think maybe Lisa, did you introduce us? Yeah. I think so. Because you were there. Yeah. So thanks, Lisa. Good job. Erskine became a great friend, and shortly after that, we began attending and participating in anti-war protests on the campus and off the campus of Blackhawk College. One of the most inspired of these protests had Erskine impersonating our president at the time, George Bush. If anybody that was there, you'll never forget it. He put on a cowboy hat and he was totally channeling the swashbuckling, like take them out, kind of like, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant. I think everything's on YouTube, so look it up, It's out there somewhere. Erskine started reading his poetry at an open mic that I had at the church at the time at St. Joe's. And I don't know, he's just been such a great person in my life. I met his family, his lovely daughters. I met his mom when he moved into his house, and I was painting for him, and his mom was, I don't know, deciding what curtains to put up or something. She came from Canada to help him decorate, and boy, decorating was something that he had a real flair for. And I guess it was nice that he had mom along to help, and I didn't think it was necessary. But anyway, it was somehow it just made sense. So, and family was just super important to him, and we would talk about family quite a bit. And he had these great dinner parties. He would just invite. If maybe one of his daughters was in town, or just for any particular occasion, he would just cook up this wonderful feast, and we'd bring us something along. And those were just really great events. But the thing that I most will miss about Erskine probably is just sitting around in that room adjacent to his kitchen and drinking coffee with him, and he'd be knock on the door. He'd just be coming out of the tub or something, or whatever. He was just. He could be very formal or very informal. He had the full range. Really. He's just a super special guy, and I will miss so many things about him. Rock on, Erskine. I'm going to sing a song. Hard to know what Bob Dylan song to sing. And I think, every one I ever sang, Erskine just loves. And so this one's something I didn't used to do. Landlord, please don't put a price on my soul. My burden is heavy, my dreams are beyond control. When that steamboat whistle blows, I'm gonna give you all I got to give, and I do hope you'll receive it well, depending on the way that you feel that you live. Dear landlord, please heed these words that I speak. I know you have suffered much, but in this you are not so unique. All of us at times we might work too hard, to have it too fast and too much, and anyone can fill his life up with things he can feel, but he just cannot touch. Dear landlord, please don't dismiss my case. I'm not about to argue, I'm not about to move to no other place. And each of us has his own special gift, and you know this was meant to be true. And if you don't underestimate me, I won't underestimate you.
Hi, I'm Brian. First of all, there's a lot of Blackhawk professors in the room that I had, so I just want to say thanks for all the inspiration you gave me. I ended up being a high school teacher, so thank you to everyone that's in the room that I had a class with. So I was one of the fortunate many with the honor of having Erskine Carter as a teacher and eventually a friend. My first encounter with him was at the start of my second year at Blackhawk. I needed to take a literature course and selected a class called Modern Novels. The teacher listed in the course catalog was E. Carter. An existential choice, if there ever was one, as my life was never quite the same after meeting him. More ways than one. On the first day, he greeted us with a piercing look, equally conveying his high expectations and enthusiasm. I know Mitch mentioned the eyes. I remember those too. You could tell he really loved what we were about to read. Books like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1984, Tess, Clockwork Orange. I had heard legends about such books in punk rock fanzines and hushed adult conversations. The titles alone had always compelled me, and I couldn't wait to dive in. He often repeated a phrase when assigning text, "Spend some time with it," he'd say. At first I thought he was telling us, make sure you read, which I can relate to now as a teacher myself. But I soon realized that he expected much more. To truly grasp literature, we have to read, reread, consider the words and ideas, and apply them to our own lives. He wasn't just teaching a reading class, he was teaching us how to think and how to live. Some of the ideas in the text were a little over our heads, but he always pulled them down from the heavens and made them tangible and accessible. Often through his own vast wisdom of literature, history, mythology, music, and the arts. And often enough through his amazing life stories, like the one he shared about hitchhiking across the country as a younger man. He somehow ended up in the Quad Cities, and while being temporarily off the highway, hiding from cops who didn't care for drifters, he said he remembered muttering, "God, who the hell would want to live in this place?" I heard him tell that one about 4 or 5 times. But then he'd laugh at the irony of spending most of his adult life here. As amazing as his classes were, they just weren't enough for me. I'd often follow him back to his office, either during breaks or afterwards, imposing awkward questions on him when he probably could have been grading papers or eating a snack. But he'd indulge me, sharing even more anecdotes. When he found out I was a music guy, he opened up even more, burning me Bob Dylan CDs, loaning me his precious copies of Joseph Campbell's Maps of God books. And I wasn't alone. I've heard stories of many others, some of you shared them today, who he made time for. Now that I think about it, he seemed to gravitate to those of us who, like him, were seeking something more than just a grade. I'm an introvert and had a pretty miserable high school experience. Consequently, my teen years were filled with their share of depression and indecision. However, I can honestly say that Erskine's classroom was among the first places I felt allowed to simply be me, without fear of being mocked or receiving the cold gaze from the herd. There's no need to put on airs with him. I know this because of what he taught us. Literature was a reflection of life, and life a reflection of literature. If we truly did spend some time with it, entire universes were at our fingertips and eyelashes. My time in his classroom ended, but I continued to seek him out for more lessons, and he always made time for me. I shared an early draft of some writing once, and he started with a critique. I kept making some sort of dumb comma splice error throughout. He said, "Brian, you cannot do that. You know why? Because you are a writer. And writers can't make those basic mistakes." Me? A writer? I could hardly believe the words myself, but he did, and he meant them. Some years went by, and I somehow ended up teaching high school English. My first year was rewarding, but had its challenges, mostly with the squirrely 7th and 8th graders. Erskine, of course, was one of the first people I consulted for a solution. Here's what he wrote to me in an email. 7th and 8th graders, eh? I spent a couple years teaching them. My trick was to scare the hell out of them the first couple weeks, and then ease off a little. I'll tell you, my friend, when one is dealing with students, the last thing one wants to do is be nice right off the bat. Give them a mean look, and the first one that looks or talks the wrong way, give them a detention or kick them out. You can't threaten them physically these days. Stress these days. So you have to use your eyes and your mouth. When you get to college stage, then you lay a 20-pound syllabus on them and tell them that all you're interested in is the work and not their personal lives. I've heard that running theme today, by the way. No home numbers, no emails, and no voicemails or phone calls unless these circumstances are extraordinary. Then you knuckle right down to the ideas and the work, and the ones who don't wish to do that will take off in a hurry. They aren't your friends, although they may become your friends after you've all actually done something together. And let me tell you, those kids would be a handful before lunch, before recess, after recess, anytime you see them. I don't want to sound like a Nazi, because I'm not, but the way to their souls is to start out strong and then relax, not too much into a groove. They will appreciate that. Hell, they have 5 or 6 other classes they can go and screw around in. If they know they're in yours to do business, they will, believe me. Although I tend to be the nice teacher myself, his words resonated and helped me to reflect and keep trying. I keep that email handy to this very day. I still have those existential moments where I question my path, but when I do, I remember Erskine's lessons. He taught us that literature and life itself were the greatest classroom. The lessons you take from each are intertwined. How do we know? By living. Erskine, thank you for helping teach me how to live. I couldn't have asked for a better guide.
Hi, my name is Vera. I'm Erskine's last love. So I would like to share a little bit of our love story with you. And I would like to send some greetings to everybody from my mother, my brothers, from all the friends in Germany and in Portugal. We met together. They all loved Erskine. And I said that he passed away too early. What an amazing grace to be loved and adored by Professor Edward Robert Erskine Carter. Erskine, thank you. You are the treasure at the end of the rainbow, he told to me. I feel the same. It will help me. When I met him the first time in Portugal, we were sitting outside of the restaurant at the top of the hill. I came up to the hill and saw him sitting there, not really good looking. But when our eyes met each other, we both felt the kick. That's it. Here's the right counter shape we were looking for a long time. But I passed him, went into the restaurant. Some seconds later, he followed me and asked if I like a special cake, and if I like Donovan. I didn't like Donovan. Yes, I do. We talked and talked and talked, and that was the beginning of a great love until forever. Later I heard more about his life like a book could be written by Shakespeare. Full of thoughts, stories, adventures, pain, humor, acknowledgement, music, bike rides, magic, dreams, theaters, movies, travels, recipes, and love to his kids and friends. He was the most educated, most sexy, most kindly, most whatever man I ever met. I could tell you a lot of things about swimming in the ocean together, reading Macbeth, Grimm's Tales, his poems at night. Traveling through Dutch Arnhem, where we met a man who knew his father as an officer. Visits to his relations and friends in Canada, hours of being together and feeling good. Do you see my eyebrows? Yes. I love them so long. Oh. Yeah. Or, jawohl, Frau Kommandant, when I begged him to cut his fingernails. So we dreamed, planned a life between America, Portugal, Germany. It sounded and felt wonderful. And we both lived together a piece of our world. A German friend wrote to me after Erskine died, Erskine, you were a guest in our house together with Vera, and you both had a glow in your eyes. Still exhausted from the motorcycle ride, you sat on the terrace and we drank coffee together. With your old clothes and the long grey hair, you may have astonished some of our neighbors. You allowed us to share some of your soul with you, and you shared it freely now. I was one of the audience during your reading in the German bookstore, in each of the Eddie Roberts stories that you read for us. So I'm a fail's truth in the background. You could feel it, taunting you. And then, right in the middle of the stories, when you looked up and gazed with joy through the room, the real Erskine had entered the room, and Eddie Robert was gone. Full of gentleness and humility, you looked back and saw a future that had suddenly opened before you, and it promised you on the horizon the real truth, and with it the happiness you have always been looking for. In your gaze there was so much warmth, contentment and love, so much that you made this afternoon magical just with your presence. And the lost soul had found its place. And like a fortune teller you said, lost in your thoughts, life is not fair. How right you were. And now at the end, I would like to read one of his love letters he wrote to me. I was thinking about this. I thought I should. Hello and good early morning, my dear Vera. It's 3 in the morning and I woke up, but I don't want to text or phone you and wake you up from a deep sleep and perhaps, I hope, sweet dreams. So I'm writing you now and will send this later, probably after we have both woken up and have texted or talked to each other. Ah, Pooh, is that how you write it, P-U-H? Pooh, because you are so far away now, but wunderbar and poor, another bad spelling, P-U-R. Because I love you so much and feel your love for me. Ja, mein Liebchen, another wrong word, but you understand. I love you. So, yeah. I just wanted to tell you how much I love you and miss you terribly when we aren't together physically. But then I can go to my heart and find you there, and it makes things better because you have touched me in so many ways that I feel like the same, but a better and happier man. We laugh, we talk, we learn from each other, and we make beautiful love, not just in bed or on the rocks and sand in the streams by the falling water, but also just holding hands as we walk or look in each other's eyes, by having a coffee in a cafe. In other words, in everything we do together, it is a lovemaking, and it's beautiful and so unexpected joy in my life. So, now I will save this message and email it later. You are such a gift to me, my darling Vera, that sometimes I am in awe of it happening to us. We both dream and dream and dream again in both our walking and sleeping lives. In this time, a dream is becoming, or rather has become, real. Both awake and asleep, and yet it remains a beautiful dream in both our waking and sleeping lives for today, tomorrow, and I hope for all of our future together. I love you, everything about you, and when you have the blues, I will be where and when and however you need me to be. And I know you will do the same for me. I don't believe this will happen often, but there are sad moments in life, like my friend dying the other day. But without them, how could we feel all the joy? And you and I have much joy ahead. I believe this with all my heart, mind, and deepest emotions. You are wonderful, my love. And now I will try to sleep a bit more. Yours and yours alone, always, Erskine. P.S. You are probably awake now. I did snooze a little bit. And I'm going to try to do some more. But I will send this now, since you will be awake. I adore you, my sweet Vera. I'm including a couple of old poems below, written long before I found you. They still speak to you of my heart. And now you are awake, and I will try to nap a bit. I love you, my sweet. Erskine? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim. Some of you think of me as the mythic Jim, that you may have heard of. I've known Erskine longer than anyone in this room, I believe. About 36 years. A lot of what I've heard this afternoon rings true with the Erskine that I know. But somehow there were some things about him when I first met him that were somewhat different. He was a lot younger, for one thing, as was I. He was freer. He was at a point in his life that was, as he called it, one of the happiest moments of his existence. He still said that to me to this day, actually. I met him at the University of Connecticut. In 1981. I had been a student there getting my PhD in English. I'd been there for 3 years. When one January morning, at the beginning of term, in bouldered Erskine Carter, with a great big knapsack and a leather jacket, and plopped all of his stuff onto the desk next to mine and became my office mate. From that day on, my life at the University of Connecticut and my life in general was never the same. Erskine was someone who crashed into your life, but he wasn't a hit-and-run driver. He stayed. Within a few days, He ran the office. It was a big office full of teaching assistants. There were about 8 of us in there. And Erskine had a nickname for every one of them and had their number down. There are stories about some of the names that he gave people who were my colleagues that I probably shouldn't tell you today because they were very politically correct. But there's one story about, there was a coffee truck outside of the English department at our home hall. And people used to go down and get coffee or take orders. And one of my colleagues, Pat France, asked him one day if she would go down and get him a coffee. He said, "What do you want?" She said, "A large black." He never let her forget that. He said, "I think I can help you out by getting someone from the basketball team." That was Erskine. It was not meant in a negative way. It was funny. It was hysterical, actually. And Pat never got over it. That was Erskine. He, as I said, he ran the office. He knew how to get people's goat. He also knew how to make them laugh. And he knew how to actually organize people, too, in the office. One of the things that we did during my time at the University of Connecticut, and listening to the stories about the, 20-pound syllabus or something like that, let me tell you, the syllabus that the two of us used back then was nowhere near 20 pounds. It was more like about, 4 pages. But we ended up having the same syllabus. We had a lot of similar interests in literature, so we came up with this identical syllabus, in part because we shared the same interests, but also in part because if one of us was sick or indisposed, we could teach the other one's class. And it worked out very well. During my time with Erskine there, he began the literary magazine Ouroboros, which continued, some of you may know Ouroboros in this room. It continued long after my time as the co-editor with it. And it was a very good little magazine which had a very long life. But the way it made its money was really kind of interesting, and I just want to share that story with you. We didn't have any funding for the magazine, so in order to raise money to print it, we would show movies. That was the days when you could show movies. People didn't have other, media outlets to look at films. So we would run a film series for our students. And, some of them were films that, like Macbeth or Tess or Clockwork Orange, that were on the syllabus. And we charge